What's up, everybody? I'm Nate Paulvote, and this is the Dynasty Hot Seat.
Yes, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Dynasty Hot Seat, the only Dynasty show out there that is a certified inferno. And today, hey, we got a new guest on the show. Been a while since we had somebody new on. We got Nate Paulvote on the show here. He's going to share some hints and tips with us. He's going to run through a mock draft. Nate, it's lovely to meet you. And do you want to tell people listening where can they find you? What is your work all about and what we're going to do today?
Well, Mags, I'm kind of all over the place here. You can find me on Twitter for the most part at Nate Paulvote. Most of my content's going to kind of go through there. Currently, I am in charge of just about everything with help and in between media. That's my home. I'm a writer there. I'm a podcaster there. Run the social media there a little, not as much as I'd like to lately. Been busy. You can also find me on Player Profiler. I have 2 shows a week. Player Profiler today, every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then tomorrow, Dear Mr. Fantasy, noon Eastern. I've got a special guest tomorrow. I got Phil Yates coming on the show to answer some mailbag questions. And then you can find me every Wednesday afternoon on Dynasty Diehards on the Razzball Network.
Busy, man. And thank you for taking some time to hop on the hot seat. And yeah, everybody listening, make sure you go and follow Nate wherever you can. And hey, if you haven't already, make sure you're following the show as well. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit all that likes and all that good stuff. It always really, really helps. And Nate, we're going to hop right into segment number 1. Just some hints and tips. You got 3 hints and tips for Dynasty players playing all around the world. So what do you got for us?
So the first one I'm going to bring up, because we're kind of in that rookie draft season where we're all trying to grade out these rookies. We don't know where they're going to land. Be smart in your rookie drafts. Something I see people do is they reach for these talented players that they don't have any need for on their roster, or guys that are being really hyped up. A good example is going to be watching Malik Willis go in the first round last season of rookie drafts. Yeah. He's ultra talented. Don't get me wrong. But we know this is a guy who's probably not going to see the field for another 1 to 2 seasons because he's a raw talent. Guys, this applies to Anthony Richardson as well this year. He's a similarly freak athleticism, but he's a raw prospect. There are some issues with accuracy. Get your guys. Definitely get your guys. You don't have to listen to the echo chamber of what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing. Get your guys, but be aware when you take a guy like Anthony Richardson, be prepared to sit him on your taxi squad for probably 2 seasons. Because realistically, the guy's not going to be an effective starter in the NFL for a couple of years. I see him going to Carolina, which is why I think they signed Andy Dalton to a 2-year deal as a bridge quarterback. Yep. I could be totally wrong, like we all are at times, but be careful in rookie drafts. That's my biggest one. Successful dynasty managers do well in rookie drafts. They're smart about who they pick. And also understand, guys, when you're moving and trading in the offseason or in season, and you're moving picks, for me, a known asset is so much more valuable than an unknown asset like a rookie draft pick. Don't be afraid to trade those picks for a guy that can help you contend today. That's something you should be willing to do. Sure, maybe you want Bijan Robinson with that first overall pick, but if you can go get Christian McCaffrey, or you can go get Travis Etienne, and you can give up that first pick for a guy you know is going to be ready to go out of the gate, it could be a better move. And don't let people tell you otherwise. Known assets of unknown assets in rookie drafts. That's where I sit with this. There are players, obviously, are going to take off. Yeah. Jordan Addison's a guy who's probably going to be an immediate impact player in the NFL. Get him. Don't necessarily move a pick where you could get him. But then again, if you can get Justin Jefferson for that pick, get Justin Jefferson.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really spot on. Like, just looking at what I've been really enjoying doing this year is I've kind of done like industry-wide ADPs based on like mock drafts from here, there, and everywhere. And it's been really interesting to see the difference now between the pre-combine landing spots and where people were taking people and the post-combine. So Anthony Richardson was at 7 or 8 in the first round, he is not going to be there post combine. So it's interesting. He hasn't really done anything that, like, everybody knew he could do all those things, I think. But just that confirmation bias at the combine has really shoved him up. So I think, having those like pre-combine, post-combine rankings are important to look at.
Well, and the interesting thing, you bring up the combine, I think there's a tendency as dynasty managers to overreact to some of the things we see at the combine. Look, is he fast? Yes.
Yeah.
But is he game fast? That's the important part. I like to throw this out. Jerome Bettis, Hall of Fame running back. The dude was a beast. I had him on a lot of my fantasy football teams when he was playing. The guy just scored points for me. He wasn't fast. He didn't have a great combine. He fell in back a little bit on the NFL side. If these guys can't do these things in a game, it doesn't matter how fast their 40 time is. Really, you want to be able to see that breakaway speed. What do they do once they have the ball in their hands? Are they a good route runner? So things like 3-cone drill and stuff, those matter a little bit more to me than some of these other things. Like if an offensive lineman can bench press 300 pounds, that's awesome. And because that translates to the position, that doesn't necessarily translate to a wide receiver. Conversely, I don't want to see a wide receiver who can bench 300 pounds because they're probably too big for the position at that point. You need that agility and ability at the position.
Yeah, you're right. You had like some like defensive linemen this year, like running faster 40 times than Cooper Kupp. It's like, good luck catching that guy in the field. Like, let's see that happen. And then I'll be impressed, right?
Right,
exactly.
Right.
So I love that as a first tip there. Be smart with those rookie picks. So what you got for your second tip then?
So here's for anybody doing a dynasty startup. ADP matters a little, but don't draft strictly based on ADP. Know how you like to construct your rosters. I'll reach for a guy because he fits my roster plan better than the guy who's highest ADP. If I have a shot at, I'm trying to think of a good like super flex quarterback here. Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Derek Carr's a good super flex quarterback. Okay. He's your QB2. He's never going to be your QB1, but don't shy away from him when he's there and go for something else you maybe don't need. Maybe you don't need that third running back. It's time to get your second quarterback. His ADP is lower, but you like him. Get him. Yeah. It's all about personal roster construction. People get so hung up on the idea of, doing what these analysts tell them. This is a smart pick. This is a smart play. But if you're, say, drafting 0 running back, it's probably not the best play for you in some situations. Do what you think is best for your team and for your roster.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said that's like the trickiest thing, I think, as well, right? Because you look at players like, you're like, I really need a second quarterback, but you're like, in the second round, you're like, I'm not taking Derek Carr in the second round. It's like, but I might have to. So it's kind of really hard sometimes to like go against your gut a lot of the times. Sometimes you have to roll the dice and hopefully someone else falls. It's maybe the trickiest thing to do in Dynasty is try to figure out when, you can gamble, even things when you just have to, ignore the ADP and just go and like get what your team needs.
Well, and when you're in these startup drafts, you see a lot of people just trying to draft like the youngest team they can. And I understand that for Dynasty, for longevity of a roster, you want a guy who's going to stick around for a while. But if you're building a team that you want to contend, get some older guys and supplement in a rookie draft. Make some trades to get younger. You don't need to sell a guy. Just because a running back's 25 doesn't mean you need to instantly sell him. Just because a wide receiver is approaching 30 doesn't mean you need to instantly sell him. Yeah. Adam Thielen's going to be 33 when the season starts. He's someone I'd be acquiring in Dynasty right now if I can, because likely he is that wide receiver 1 in Carolina at this point. Terrace Marshall, Lucas Chenault, they're not above him. They don't have DJ Moore anymore. If you're a contender, don't be afraid to trade for some of these vet guys and give up a little bit of youth, because in the end, it's all about winning a championship anyway, right? You don't get a prize for having the youngest roster.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like you have to sort of decide. I think there's a point in the draft where you have to be like, right, this is going to be my route going for it. So at the minute I'm doing a startup with some friends, and there was a value pick who was Saquon Barkley was available in like the 5th round or something. It's like, I can't not take him. I already had like a stack with Mahomes and Kelsey. It's like, right, I have to like go lean into this kind of win now mode. So whenever you're looking at, there's players like Gabe Davis on the board, but then it's like DeAndre Hopkins. Like, I'm going to take DeAndre Hopkins because I want to try and win this year. And I've got like a set plan of what I want to do going forward. So I think that's how you become smarter with your picks, if you have more of an idea of what your vision is for the next year or two, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Go into your draft with a vision. I really like that. Know your plan. Don't just, oh, here, I'm going to draft. If you're serious about winning, have a plan.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely agree. And yeah, great second tip there. What you got first for your third and final tip, Nate?
So remember that this is a game. You see so many people get so serious about it and get upset about it. And
yeah,
if you're not having fun, you shouldn't be playing. I'm in 26 Dynasty leagues right now.
Nice.
And I draw the ones that I'm not having fun in, I leave. Because I want to win. I want to win money. I'm not going to win every league every year or even get close. But make sure you're enjoying yourself, right? Like this is just an added bonus to our love of football.
Mm-hmm.
We get to be a little bit more involved in it and have fun and be a good manager in your leagues. Don't be that guy that everybody hates being around. I have a couple of leagues where people just whine all the time. It's like, why are you doing this? If all you're going to do is whine, leave the league. There's somebody out there that will pick up this orphan and have fun with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good. And like even things like, especially this time of year, like if you're doing a startup draft, you always get at least one person who's like, "Oh, this is taking so long." It's like, March. It's March. Like we've literally got months and months and months. We got like half a year. We'll get there. Like chill.
Right? Like it's called a slow draft for a reason, folks.
Yeah.
Let it go slow. Exactly. I wish I had time to sit in front of a computer and just draft as soon as I came up. That would be awesome. Yeah. But somebody would have to pay me for that, and nobody's paying me for that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, wouldn't it? Imagine that. Just like sitting drafting all day. And yeah, that's the dream. We're gonna try and get the hot seat there, right? I'll just sit and draft all day, just get paid for it by YouTube.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Let's do that.
Yeah, that's
great.
Let's do it. Yeah.
It's perfect.
Perfect. Well, I love those 3 tips, Nia. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna get into the real meat of the show, which is, looking at these 2023 rookies. We're gonna pull up our draft board here. Now we're gonna go through all of these picks here. We're probably going to go about 2 rounds here. And some players we might chat about for extended bits of time. Other players we might kind of just gloss over and if there's not much to say about them. So we'll start off the 1-1. Everyone has picked the same player. I assume, Nate, you're going to go down the same route. This is a super flex draft, but I don't think it makes too much difference with 1-1.
It doesn't, because the best player in this class for fantasy purposes is Bijan Robinson.
Yeah.
His mix of speed and agility aren't something we see very often in running backs. Like now I'm going to say this, and I've said it a few times, and it's kind of pissed some people off because they think I'm making a direct correlation. His skill set reminds me of Barry Sanders.
Okay.
He's not especially fast in the open field, but he's so quick and creates separation, especially once he gets past the line of scrimmage into that second tier. Linebackers can't tackle him. Safeties have a hard time tackling him. Cornerbacks can't catch him.
Yeah.
What more do you want?
He's just so dangerous everywhere. And like on top of that, like he's even a good like pass blocker as well. It's like, come on, man, you gotta have like something wrong with you, right? He can do like everything. And I'm not worried. I don't care where he goes. I'm really not worried what team picks him up. I've actually weirdly, I have no idea where he will go. You see mock drafts, people having him like really, really high, other people have him right at the very end of the first round. Don't think anyone's got a real grasp of what the NFL's like value on running backs is. I think Bijan's really going to answer that in this draft.
You know where I think he's going to Philly at 10. Personally, I know, but the thing is that what needs do they really have to address in this draft?
I know. I hate that so much because Philly are so good. Like that is so annoying when they got Bijan. Being, oh man, but yeah, I think it's a great landing spot.
I mean, that's the one thing they really need. Them and Buffalo. Those are 2 teams that really desperately need a running back right now. Even though Buffalo just got Damian Harris, God, Bijan would be so good in that offense.
Yeah, exactly. It's a complete package up. So I can't wait to see where he ends up. So like I've been saying all year, this is where the real draft begins, right? 102. So who's going for you at 102?
Well, given that it's super flex, and I personally believe that CJ Stroud is the best quarterback in this class, I'm going Stroud there.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
I think that makes sense. You think he's going to go number 1 overall then in the draft?
I think so. I think he ends up in Carolina. I'd love to see Anthony Richardson in Carolina, and I think that that's still a real possibility. But how do you pass up on Stroud? He's the most pro-ready, I believe, in this class. Second most pro-ready is probably Hendon Hooker.
Yeah, Hendon Hooker, a guy sort of a forgotten name. We might end up getting to him later. We'll never know. And Stroud, I think Stroud as well. like not only a good player, but he kind of showed a bit with his legs, not as much as we thought, but neither did Justin Fields. So maybe that's a scheme thing over there at Ohio State. So I can see Stroud opening up a little bit more with the six, especially if he goes somewhere like the Panthers, who have done that in the past.
Well, we know he's quick, so.
Yeah.
And the NFL is shifting so much more towards you want a more mobile quarterback. Like, look at Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is incredibly mobile. They don't use it as often in Jacksonville, but that's the type of quarterback that the NFL is looking for now. Guys like Derek Carr, Tom Brady wasn't especially mobile, and I think we're seeing kind of the changing of the guard in the league where your quarterback's got to be able to move. You can't have Kirk Cousins who's just kind of like cemented in the pocket. The days of that being acceptable as an NFL quarterback are really starting to fade away, which leads to my second pick. I think Bryce Young, or my third pick, I think Bryce Young is a guy that it's between Stroud and Young here, who you're taking second overall in Superflex. But again, Bryce Young, he's probably the Texans quarterback, which would have been, I don't know, a death for his fantasy value for most people. Like, oh no, not the Texans. But they've made some moves to actually make this a better team. They're acquiring Dalton Schultz. I love that. And then I think that they'll get him a wide receiver with their second pick in the first round or with the 33rd pick in the second round.
Yeah, and they've also just re-signed, I'm blanking on his name. He's now like the highest paid offensive lineman in the league. Yeah. Yeah, they've re-signed him, and I was like, that is 100%. Because like you're thinking about Bryce Young here, which is a smart thing to do, not necessarily what I thought the Texans. I think the Texans have been so bad for a while, people just think they're going to mess this up. But that's a pretty good start, right? Protecting potentially Bryce Young, so that'll go a long way, and he's going to need it because you cannot be 5'11" and take hits from these guys, so he's really going to need it. Yeah. But definitely got the talent in there. So Bryce Young at pick 3. Who are we going with then at pick number 4?
Who I've seen a lot going with this pick is Will Levis, but I don't like that. Levis is a guy that should be floating to the back end of the first round, in my opinion. Now, if you need a quarterback, you're needing to get that second quarterback. Levis is a fine pick, but dude, Jackson Smith and Jigba. He just ran that 4.5 340 at the USC Pro Day. It was impressive, and I think he might be the best wide receiver in this class. And I know that there are people that are going to call me an idiot for saying that, but the skill set is there. He's a tight route runner. He's got quick feet. He's got breakaway speed. What more do you want from a guy?
Yeah. He just seems, he's another guy where I'm not really worried where he goes. He just seems so pro ready, and like the sharpness he changes direction. I think that's going to frighten some people playing against him. I seen a mock draft the other day where he was mocked to the Eagles. I'm like, get out of it. You can't have 3 receivers that good. Like, no way. So I don't think that would be great. But apart from that, I think, wherever he goes, he's going to be, he's going to be hard to beat out as a number 1 receiver wherever he goes. So I love that pick. I think he's my number 1 receiver in the draft as well, Jackson Smith and Jigba. So who you going with then at pick number 5?
So we're gonna go running back here. We're gonna go with Jahmyr Gibbs. Yep. He's easily the second best running back in this class. It's not particularly close for me. Again, his skill set just screams successful NFL. Plus, he's got that receiving upside, much like Bijan, where he is a talented pass catcher, which in not just in Superflex and PPR, that's what you want out of a running back. That's where you're going to get the most value. Because if you look at it, you get 1 point per catch plus the yardage, plus a touchdown. So a 40-yard touchdown reception is, depending on your league, scoring 11 points for one play. Yeah. And that's the kind of value you want in Dynasty, a guy who's going to produce like that. And you see these pass-catching backs tend to last a little bit longer because there's less stress on the body. Now, if he has Le'Veon Bell-type touches, he's not going to last long. Nobody's going to last long touching the ball fourth, unless you're Christian McCaffrey, of course. But this is a kind of guy where this is a pick for a running back who's going to have some longevity in the league, I believe.
Yeah, and you just really hope that whoever drafts him, really does realize, like, this is how you should be using him. I don't really want to see, we've obviously seen Clyde Edwards-Helaire drafted and not utilized the way he should have been until last year. Josh Jacobs drafted and not really utilized the way he should have been. So you're hoping, whoever drafts Jahmyr Gibbs realizes, he should be used with this sort of pass catching ability. And unless he really bulks up, probably not the best idea to be running him up the gut.
Yep. I think my dream landing spot for him would probably be New Orleans to step into that Kamara role, because Kamara's cooked. Like, let's be honest. Even if he doesn't get jail time or get suspended, the dude's been on the decline because he's been used too much. And now they've got Jamal Williams, who can be that bruising back. So you get that pass catching back, guy who runs outside the tackles, and Jahmyr Gibbs. I think it would be a great fit.
Yeah, I 100% agree. That would be amazing to see him there. So Gibbs at 5 seems really, really good value there. So who's jumping in at pick number 6?
So we're going to go back to wide receiver, and he's
Come on.
a more raw talent, Quentin Johnson.
Okay.
The thing I love about Quentin Johnson is his size, really, and his ability to track the ball in the air. He's going to have to get better at contested catches. He didn't have a great contested catch rate in college.
Yeah.
And he's not especially fast necessarily, but he does have that breakaway speed once he gets into the secondary. And that's what I'm looking for in these top tier wide receivers. And I don't care much about landing spot, because he's one of those players where the team that takes him is probably wide receiver needy. And that goes for all of these guys that are going in the first round. He's going to be on a wide receiver needy team. He's going to be an instant wide receiver 2. And he's probably in fantasy. He probably has like back end wide receiver 2 upside with a wide receiver 3 floor in his rookie season, and that's only going to get better.
Yeah. I think he's like drawn NFL receiver, right? Like an old school kind of, and a lot of these guys like Smith and Jigba and like Addison, or even like say Flower, people like they're smaller kind of twitcher kind of guys are coming through, and he's kind of like this like monument to the past, this big like kind of lumbering guy coming through. So I think that could be interesting to see how he pairs with teams that are kind of moving towards dealing with a Devonta Smith type threat and moving like away from Quentin Johnson. So he could end up somewhere really good. I keep coming back to, I'm wondering if maybe they're not quite the right fit. I keep coming back to like Atlanta Falcons, just because it looks like they're trying to build like a basketball team type thing out there. So he could be quite an interesting fit there.
He could be. He could be an interesting fit. I don't love the franchise. I don't like Arthur Smith as a head coach, but him paired with Drake London and Kyle Pitts, that could be sexy for sure.
Yeah. So we'll see where he ends up. Yeah, a good player for sure. And who's being locked in at then pick number 7?
I think it's time for Will Levis to come off the board here.
Yep.
I'm really hoping he ends up in Las Vegas. I think he will. I think there's a good chance that he goes at 7. We'll see how our whole NFL mock draft plays out on Diehards later today. Maybe he goes earlier, maybe he goes later. Don't know.
Yeah.
I like him to the Raiders. They need a quarterback. I mean, they've got Jimmy G. He can bridge Levis. But
poor Jimmy Garoppolo.
But
he's always like the bridesmaid, right? Jimmy G.
Yeah, right. But I think this is a good situation for Levis. And I think that even taking him in the first round, he's a guy I'm okay taking early and taxing, because I think that the potential is there that he becomes a QB1 in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think 7's a nice spot from. He's really interesting. He's a kind of guy that you could see someone, like you said earlier, like jumping all the way up to 3 and taking him. Or you've got like the opposite, and some people are like, nah, I'm not a Levis guy, I don't like him. And he could like slip. So I'm wondering if 7's like right about like the average where he might finish up.
Yeah, I think this is about where we're going to see him come off the board in most drafts.
Yeah, I think so. So nice value at 1.7 there. So who are you picking in then at pick 8 of the first round?
I'm going with Jordan Addison here, sir.
Nice.
Again, he's a guy where I see him plugging into an offense pretty much immediately.
Yeah.
We didn't love his 40 time, but I want him to go to Pittsburgh. In 2021, he won the Biletnikoff Award as the best wide receiver in college football with Kenny Pickett at quarterback. Then he transferred to USC, which was good for his visibility. He needed that to get seen on a more national level and to get these scouts interested in what he was doing in a bigger conference. He didn't get the volume that he had at Pitt, but the world got to see how talented of a wide receiver this guy is.
Yeah.
Size is a concern slightly, but I think in a place like Pittsburgh, he fits into the slot almost immediately. You've got Pickens, you've got Deontay Johnson. In theory, you've got Freiermuth. It's a good move for the team. It's a good move for Pickett. And even if he doesn't end up in Pittsburgh, this is still a guy who's, like I said, he's going to be an immediate impact player in fantasy.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, they usually do quite like to have 3 like fairly strong receivers on the roster. And obviously they got rid of Claypool, so they're probably going to want to get somebody in to like kind of take over his, because he was being used in the slot quite a bit, actually, Claypool, for his size. So yeah, someone to come in and take his role, I think makes perfect sense. So yeah, Jordan Addison, love him at pick. And by the way, how good I'd be slightly worried at the start before this class. People were kind of saying, oh, maybe it wasn't. It was all hyped up to be. You get a player like Jordan Addison at pick 8. It's a good class, right?
It's a really good class.
Yeah.
It's all, I mean, it's all relative. Next year's class might be better, might be worse. We won't know until we get there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, while we're here, pick 8, Jordan Addison. Gotta love it. So who's coming in then at pick number 9?
So I think this is about where we're going to see Anthony Richardson come off the board here, is the back half of the first round. Now, I made the Malik Willis comparison earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between Richardson and Willis, though, is I think Richardson's a little bit more ready to be out there. And depending on where he lands, because like even if he goes to Carolina first overall, which could very well happen, I still think there's a world where he's starting by midseason.
Yeah.
He's got more size, most importantly. And dude, that his arm is just a freaking cannon. And in a place like Carolina, look, they make dumb decisions. That franchise just continually makes dumb decisions. So if they decide to go with Richardson first overall, I think he's starting by midseason, because I think Andy Dalton's I like to call him Sam Darnold Sr. Because I think Sam Darnold's going to end up as the Andy Dalton at some point. He's a journeyman who gets thrust into a starting role because of injuries, or because for some reason Dennis Allen's an idiot and didn't want to start Jameis Winston all season, and still refuses to start Winston, which I just want to see Winston throwing the ball to Chris Olave, man. Is that too much to ask?
Perfect, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right. But I think Richardson's a guy who I'm okay taking with the 9th pick and then taxing him to start the season and see what happens.
Yeah. I'm thinking the more I look into it, the more I see mocks, the more I actually think Richardson could end up at the Colts. Just because like Shane Steichen's come in, he was at the Eagles, Jalen Hurts came along. Like I'm seeing just kind of, maybe it's not the best math, but I'm like, Richardson has some of the qualities that Jalen Hurts has. Maybe Steichen likes the look of that. It's hard to,
I could see that. Now, so here's my question. If he ends up in Indy, is he the starter day one, or do they roll out Minshew to start the season?
I think you can play Minshew for a year and happily like get a better draft pick in 2024 and then roll out Richardson and start to really look to contend, because I think they're just a few pieces away still. I wouldn't really think that they'd be thinking Anthony Richardson's going to lead them to the playoffs this year. So why not sit him out and make him better for a year and just play Minshew and see how you get on.
Yeah, and watch Minshew accidentally make the playoffs.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Dude, I'm a big Gardner Minshew stan. I love the dude. I think he's one of the most electric personalities in the NFL, and I just want to see him get a chance.
All right, that like needs to happen now. Okay, so I'm going to try and will that into the universe. So yeah, Richardson at 9. Yeah. Sorry, what were we going to ask?
No, nothing. I was just saying, let's do it. Let's will it into existence.
Oh, man. Absolutely. Yeah, let's do it. So let's move on then. Pick number 10 of the first round. Who are we going to go for?
So for me, this is where the draft kind of starts to get less exciting for me, because now we've hit these first 9 players and there are a lot of question marks here. But who is not a question mark to me is Zay Flowers. And I will gladly take him with the 10th pick. And again, this is a guy where I don't care where he lands. It doesn't matter to me. He's a guy who I think plugs into an NFL offense almost immediately.
Yeah, love watching Zay Flowers play, right? He's a guy, like you see the ball in his hands, you're like, oh, this is fun, right? Yeah, and like he's exciting to watch, and hopefully you're right. Doesn't matter where he lands, because you think these guys have also watched Zay Flowers, right? They'll know what to do with him. You would like to think so anyway. So yeah, I like Zay Flowers there at pick number 10. So who's popping in at pick 11 for you?
So this is going to kind of break from what I think a lot of people are doing right now, but I really like Michael Mayer at tight end. And first round tight ends outside of Kyle Pitts, it's kind of risky. But then Kyle Pitts turned out to be kind of a bust the first 2 seasons for what we were expecting out of him in Atlanta, which is why I hate Arthur Smith so much. Thanks for ruining my dynasty squads, man. Because he was a guy, when you drafted Kyle Pitts, did you put him on taxi? No. You were ready to go. You wanted him to start, and realistically should have taxied him for a couple seasons. Hopefully this is his year, but I think Michael Mayer is different. I think wherever he ends up is a team that's looking to use a tight end out of the gate.
Yeah.
And tight end's such a hard position in fantasy because the disparity between tight end 1 and tight end 12 is like 200 points.
Yeah.
The difference between tight end 1 and tight end 2 can be 60 to 70 points some seasons.
Yeah.
So if you can get him at 11, there isn't somebody else in your league that's super hot on him, I think this is huge value for Mayer.
Yeah, the tight end, you're right. I think it was this year in tight end premium leagues. The difference between Travis Kelce and whoever tight end 2 was, it was like being able to play an extra Christian Kirk every week.
Yes.
Which is insane. Like, it's just such a huge difference maker. But yeah, well, Michael Mayer, I was thinking, sorry, go ahead.
I was saying there's just such a difference in how teams use tight ends because, like, I mean, if you look at New England last season and the season before with Henry and Jonnu Smith, like, everybody thought Jonnu Smith was going to blow up. I hyped him when he went to New England. I was really excited for it. And they just don't use tight ends the same in that scheme with Mac Jones, which makes me nervous for Mike Gesicki. But
yeah, it could be. Surely the one Belichick. Surely he's not going to ask Mike Gesicki to block. That would be a very bad move.
Well, that's going to be Hunter. I think that's going to be Hunter Henry's role.
Yeah,
he's a much better blocker. And like Mike Gesicki said, when somebody called him a tight end, he says, big slot receiver.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if Sleeper MFL are going to change that tight end tag that he's got to minute, because that's certainly not right. He's not.
I hope not. I really don't want them to, because I need him to be a tight end on my rosters.
Yeah, it does help for sure. But yeah, Michael Mayer, tight end 1 in there. Going to help the team out a lot for sure. So who's going to round off the first round then at pick 12?
You know, I'm going to go Jalen Hyatt here.
Nice.
Because I love wide receivers, and I think he's really being undervalued in this class for some reason, at least by fantasy managers. NFL standards, he's definitely not. He might sneak into the first round of the draft. It's possible, depending on where Addison goes, where Quentin Johnson goes, where Smith and Jigba goes. But he's got, again, this is a dude with all the talent in the world, and he played really well last season at Tennessee without Hendon Hooker at quarterback. Yeah. So I think his future's bright.
Yeah, I think so. I think the thing I've heard the most about Jalen Hyatt, it's not really a knock on him. I think people are more afraid of like the type of player like a Jalen Guyton or people like that who are just like field stretchers. I think Hyatt's probably got too much in the tank to be used just as that. And he's probably got more in his locker that he can be, affect the game on other levels of the field than just like throw it long to Jalen.
Yep, no, I completely agree. He's really good in those slants and cross routes as well. So
yeah. So hopefully he gets used effectively for sure. And that's the end of round number 1. Let's swing it around and let's see if we can blast through another round then. So who's going to go at pick 1 of the second round for you, Nate?
Well, again, this is where things get interesting. Getting into these late, the second round, I'm going to go with another tight end because I really like the skill set of Dalton Kincaid. And again, he's a guy who's more of a wide receiver, in my opinion, than he is a tight end. And he'll be drafted accordingly. And I'm assuming used accordingly. I don't know what landing spot I like the best for him, but I know that wherever he goes, I think he's a guy who could make an impact immediately. Maybe like a Daniel Bellinger type impact, where Bellinger kind of came on until he got his eye gouged.
Yeah.
Which is wild. But I think he's a guy who can have that kind of similar, like coming up and you're going to want to start him middle of the season. He's a guy who's going to start being impactful. Yeah,
I really like Kincaid. Great, like really, really solid hands. And yeah, tight ends with good hands. That's usually good news for fantasy football. So yeah, Kincaid at 2-1. Really like that. Who's going to go at 2-2?
So we're going to go Zach Charbonnet. This is interesting because I'm not as high on him as a lot of people are. I think he's a little bit slow, but he's a guy, again, he's a between the tackles type runner. I could see him fitting in really well in San Francisco to be the 1B to McCaffrey. He's the guy who they have hit the line hard because Elijah Mitchell just hasn't shown to be durable in that role. No. And you don't want him to be that guy. He needs to be the change of pace guy on the McCaffrey side. But if you can get this power back like Zach Charbonnet, to go back to the idea of Jerome Bettis, he's a similar type runner. Now, I don't think he's going to end up in the Hall of Fame like Buss, but he's that similar type of runner who's going to grind it out. And this is a guy who could conceivably have double-digit touchdowns in 2023 in the right system.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that. And I think what's great about Charbonnet is like he doesn't have like elite hands, but he can catch the ball. as well, which I think really does help. And he could, if circumstances fall that way, he can be a 3-down back in the NFL, which, even if it's for a few weeks with injuries, that is just amazing. But he's got that ability, I think, for sure.
Yep.
So, yeah, Charbonnet 2-2, love it. Who's jumping in at 2-3?
Kayshon Boutte. Same thing. He didn't test well at the combine. I care and I don't care about that, but he's not. Everybody was really upset about his 40 time, but he's just not that. He's not a speed guy. And if you thought he was a speed guy in college, you weren't watching him play. He's a between the tackles type guy he can get outside. He doesn't do it a ton, but he can do it. And I think, again, wherever he ends up, I think he's a quality player.
He's at the 40 time. I wasn't shocked by it. Was his vertical jump. I was like, what is going on there? That was he was like the bottom of the class with the vertical jump. I was like, that's interesting. I was like, is he still injured? I'm like, what is going?
Well,
yeah.
But he's not going to, nobody's going to expect him to be that type of receiver. Again, he's a guy that he's going to live inside 10 yards from the line of scrimmage. That's where he's going to live. And I'm okay with that because guys like that have value. I mean, Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, and again, not that caliber of player, but fitting into that role. He's a wide receiver 3, and I'm okay with taking a wide receiver 3 with the 3rd pick in the 2nd round.
He was another guy, actually. We mentioned Jordan Addison, I think, to the Steelers. I was like, Kayshon Boutte would fit nicely at the Steelers. He would. I think. Just because, obviously, there's a couple of personal red flags. I think Mike Tomlin likes getting those guys and kind of straightening them out and sorting them out. I think Boutte to the Steelers would be a really, really good fit.
So we're going to keep this alive here with guys that I don't necessarily love, but I think can fit somewhere. Tank Bigsby.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in the name. Tank.
Yeah. I love watching Tank play. He moves around so much, right? I think he's got historically high levels of jukes, spin moves. He's always constantly hitting those controller buttons on his pad. He's always spinning or doing something, which I love. I love the grind that he's trying to get through. So yeah.
Well, and that's guys who can do that to make up for a lack of speed. You love to see it.
Yeah, just a grinder as well. I like Tank Bigsby there. And who's going to jump in at 2-5?
Josh Downs. I think he's being kind of underrated here in this class. I think he's maybe the 4th best receiver in this class. But if you can get him here, you can wait on him a little bit and not have to trade up or spend extra draft capital to take him in the 1st round. It's a good pick. Yeah,
Josh, he's another one. I think wherever he goes, he'll end up doing just fine. He's got such a good skill set, solid skill set, that you're not really worried about him ending up with a specialist coach or specialist coordinator. He's going to slot into almost every NFL team. So yeah, get him at 2-5. Superb.
So now we're going to go back to another running back. And this is kind of a reach, but this is a situation where I'm willing to reach because I believe this guy's upside is huge. Tyjae Spears out of Tulane. He looked great at the combine. He upped his stock. But even before, people just don't know about him because he went to Tulane. And Tulane's not – when you think of college football, you don't really think of Tulane. No. Most people don't even know what their mascot is. But it's a gorgeous campus. If you're ever in New Orleans, go check out the Tulane campus. It's kind of in the Garden District. It's beautiful, beautiful campus. This is a guy I think will unexpectedly become an RB1 on whatever team he's drafted. Yeah. Just because he's so talented.
Yeah. Yeah, he's great. And I've had he really kind of shot onto my scene, obviously, when he at the Senior Bowl, he kind of really popped at the Senior Bowl. And that's whenever people started going this guy looks pretty good. I had Garrett Price from the Dynasty Nerds on. He took him in the 1st round. He's a big, big believer in Tyjae Spears and what he can do. And it's you imagine he learns to catch the ball a little bit better. I think the sky's the limit for Tyjae Spears. Absolutely.
Yep. And even if he doesn't, I'm okay with that because I just think the talent's there as a runner. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay, who are we going for next to follow up Tyjae Spears?
So we're going to go with Kendre Miller.
Nice. Yep.
Again, he's one of those guys that I think is just going to be a power back and screams touchdown volume to me.
Yeah, you're right. It's kind of the way the NFL's going, right? Where you're having these, it's annoying for fantasy, but you have these people that are just coming in as the bruisers, taking away from maybe your favorite running back. But Kendre Miller could be a guy like that. He comes in and just gobbles up all the touchdowns, like a Jameson Williams from last year, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait for him to be healthy for a whole season.
Yeah, that'll be good. So he's locked in there. Kendrick Miller. Who are we moving on to after him?
So I'm gonna break from the norm here, and I'm gonna go Luke Musgrave at tight end again.
Nice.
I think this is one of the better tight end classes we've had. I really liked last year
Yeah.
with Bellinger and Rucker as well, but
Mhm.
Musgrave's just, again, he's a big dude that can catch the ball, and
Yeah.
when you get that in a tight end in the right situation, it's fantasy gold.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm wondering if this is like, has he been? I'm trying to think if he's been in the league long enough. Do you think this is oddly like a kind of like Travis Kelce effect, where it's like now like cool to play a tight end, and these guys are like these big receivers, like I want to play tight end, I want to be like Travis Kelce. I know Gronk did it before, but Kelce doesn't really do what Gronk did either, like with the blocking. I wonder if that is what we're starting to see, like more of these Kelce-esque, like big guys that can catch the ball coming through.
Well, I think it's Kelce for sure.
Yeah.
But also, like, if you go back a little bit farther, I mean, Gronk, obviously, but Antonio Gates, Tony Gonzalez, those were big dudes that they were just elite, great hands, and again, touchdown hogs. Musgrave's a guy I think teams will use in the red zone. You put that guy on a jump ball in the back corner, like you see Travis Kelce do, and he's going to win that 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love getting like good value tight ends in the second round. I think it's always a good play. So Musgrave is locked in at 2-8 then. So who are we going with then at 2-9?
We're going to go with Devin Achane.
Yes.
Did I say that right? It's
Achane. I've heard Etienne a lot. Etienne is what I've heard.
We'll go with Etienne.
Yeah.
I said Jameis Winston for the longest time, and my wife just hated it. It made her crazy. And then I called Travis Kelce Todd Kelce for a while too. So just subconsciously, who knows why?
So do you know the story about why they're called Kelce?
No.
Right. So Travis and Jason Kelce, their dad, like didn't know if they were Kels or Kelsey, but like kind of preferred Kelce. So it was just like, just call me Kelce. And he found out like years later, it's actually Kels. He's like, people have been calling me Kelce for too long. So it's just, they're Kelce now.
So in doing some ancestry research on my family, I found out that my name is actually supposed to be pronounced Paul Vogt.
Paul Vogt.
Paul Vogt is a traditional Prussian German pronunciation of it. It's too late to change, man. Just call me Paul Vogt. It works fine.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah, you're right. It works well in the States, right? You got the Paul and the vote, right? It's easy. You can explain it.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's Devin Etienne or whoever we're going to call him. What do you like about him?
I just think he's an all-around, well-rounded running back in general. And again, he's one of those guys where I think he's probably going to start on your taxi squad if you're smart, because he's probably not going to out the gate be a starting running back. But it's a guy that could work into a starting role or in a starting role in 2023.
Yeah, I think so. There's definitely potential for him if he ends up in one of those like these golden fantasy teams like Bills or something. People are going to maybe start overdrafting him perhaps, and get really excited about him. But I think the talent is there for him to have a nice career. He's certainly fast enough anyway. So gotta love Devin Etienne in there. So we got 3 picks left of the second round. So who's going to be locked in at pick 210?
Come on.
So we talked about him a little bit earlier. Hendon Hooker. If you can get Hendon Hooker in the second round of your rookie drafts, man, you've got to do it. I've got a really good friend who is much more plugged into college football than I am. He doesn't even watch the NFL. That's how plugged into college ball he is. He was a kicker in college. He played at CU actually years ago. If you saw him, you'd be like, "You were a kicker? You mean linebacker?"
Oh wow.
6'3", probably 250. So on a light day, yeah, right.
Yeah.
But his wife, he's a big Bama guy. His wife is from Tennessee, so she's a big Vols fan.
Yeah.
He has convinced me that the only reason we're not talking more about Hendon Hooker is because of that ACL tear. This is a guy that could have competed would have been in the running for the Heisman if he had stayed healthy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And he contends he's the most pro-ready quarterback in this class, above Bryce Young, above CJ Stroud, above Will Levis, above Anthony Richardson. And I tend to believe him because he's the guy who told me that Trey Lance was never going to amount to anything in the NFL and didn't understand why he got drafted so high. So if you can get Hendon Hooker in the second round of your rookie drafts, you've got to do it. The guy's got a cannon for an arm, and he's just an all-around mobile, talented, smart, heady quarterback.
Yeah, I think he's kind of flying under the radar because he hasn't been like at the combine. He hasn't done like a pro day or anything like that yet. But yeah, that's what I was going to mention before your kicker. But he said I think he was maybe even odds on to win the Heisman Trophy because he's doing things. Did he throw like 6 touchdown passes against Alabama, 5 touchdowns? Jalen Hyatt caught them all. Like, yeah, he was playing really, really well until that injury. And, ACL, that's not the death sentence it once was either. Like, try and find me a top player that's not had an ACL injury. They've all had them. Like, so it's not a big as deal as maybe it was 6-7 years ago. So I think Hooker is great value there at the back end of the second. And we got 2 left. So who's your penultimate pick in the second round then?
So we're going to go Zach Evans on this one.
Yep.
Again, much like a chain, however you say it, he's a better than average running back who, wherever he ends up, is going to fit into a system. He's going to be an RB2, probably a solid flex play, but really in rookie drafts, that's what you're looking for once you get to the back half of the second round and later. You're looking for role player guys that you might have to stream. You're probably likely not going to start on a regular basis unless you're starting 3 running backs for whatever format you're in. But I think it's it's a good value pick in the second round.
Yeah, Zach, I still can't. I'm struggling to figure out Zach Evans. So my main thing is I don't really hate what I see on the tape. I'm worried about he got sort of beaten for the job by Kendra Miller and he had to trade away. And then Roshan Judkins this year is he looked better than Zach Evans this year. I'm like, is that just going to keep happening to him in the NFL where he's just not going to look as good as the people around him? But it's hard to tell. It depends where he ends up, right?
Yeah, exactly. So then for my last pick, this is my favorite because he's going to fall this far in rookie drafts, in most rookie drafts, unless you're incredibly plugged into college football and Dynasty, or if you're listening to us, Roshan Johnson, baby.
Yes.
This dude is so talented, and the only reason people aren't higher on him is because he was behind Bijan at Texas. But if you're not familiar with Roshan, go watch film. If you're watching this, when you're done with this show, obviously watch us till the end. Then go YouTube some Roshan Johnson highlights, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The dude's just all-around baller, and whatever team he ends up on, he's their RB1 by the end of the season, if not to start the season.
Yeah, I think he's even now in this draft, look, he's below Bijan Robinson literally in this draft, right? He just didn't get the chance to shine that he maybe should have gotten. I believe he's not been playing running back that long. He used to be a quarterback or something. He came in and just worked his ass off. And that's what I assume he'll just keep doing in the NFL. He'll come in to a backfield, and there's a bit of a running back crisis in the NFL. People are crying out for good running backs, and Roshan Johnson is a good running back. So I'm really excited to see where he goes. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him kind of creep up a little bit and win himself a starting role. So that brings us to the end of the second round. Before we run through everything, do you have, we don't have time probably to go through a full third, fourth round, all that. Is there anybody you're like, oh, I wish I got a little bit to talk about them? Just one or two, maybe sleeper picks. You're look out for this guy.
He didn't come off the board here. There's a chance he'll come off the board as we get after the draft, but Marvin Mims, man.
Yeah.
Dude is talented. Dude's kind of being underrated, which I don't really understand. He's going to be an impact player in the NFL.
Yeah, that was a guy who had a really good combine actually as well, right, Mims? Yeah. He showed up. He was fast. Was he the fastest wide receiver? I think he might have been at the combine, which isn't even something that I thought going in is Marvin Mims is going to be the fastest. I assumed it would be a Jalen Hyatt or something, but Mims really teared up the combine, which will help him a lot going forward. So yeah, I love that pick of Marvin Mims. So certainly look out for him in the third round. And yeah, that brings us to the end. Let's quickly run through who we picked up here. We got Bijan Robinson at pick 1, then we went for Stroud and Bryce Young. Jackson Smith and Jigba as the first wide receiver off the board. We had Jahmyr Gibbs, then Quentin Johnson, Will Levis, Jordan Addison, and Anthony Richardson at 9, Zay Flowers at 10, then Michael Mayer and Jalen Hyatt, rounding up the first round. Into the second week, Kincaid, Charbonnet, Keyshawn Butte, Tank Bigsby, Josh Downs. Then we got Spears and Miller, Luke Musgrave, Devon Achane, Hendon Hooker, Zach Evans, and then last but certainly not least, Roshan Johnson, rounding up the second round. And that brings us to the end of this episode of the Dynasty Hotseat. I want to say it was absolutely brilliant to meet you. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. Hopefully you've had a nice time. And you just want to remind people where can they find you online?
Well, no, this has been great, Mags. Thank you so much. Eric wasn't lying when he said I'd have a good time. I trust Eric. He's a good friend. You can find me on Twitter, at Nate Paula, wherever I point. And then most importantly, guys, make sure you're liking this video, subscribe to the Dynasty Hot Seat channel, support Mags. That's more important. You can find all my work on Twitter. I'm all over the place. If you follow me, you're going to see my tweets with all of my stuff. But make sure you are subscribed to this channel. Don't miss an episode. And follow Mags on Twitter, man.
Yeah, look at that. You're doing all my work for me. This is fantastic. I feel like I'll be on next week and you'll be like, welcome to the Dynasty Hot Seat. It's like, how's Nate taking over the show? What's he done? Yeah. But man, yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening. As always, yeah, follow on all of that good stuff. And remember, anything Dynasty you need to know, keep it locked on the Certified Inferno. I will see you next time. Bye.